In this video, you guys are going to learn about the differences between a flip release and a proper release. So I'm going to be using my trusty HackMotion device here to give you guys a bit more of a detailed explanation about the differences between the two. And I'm going to explain what you should be trying to achieve or what should be happening, and then a few drills to get you closer to the right form. And like always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And if you are visiting my channel for the first time, please subscribe to see more golf-related content in the future. Okay, to start things off, I just want to explain quickly what a proper release is and what a flip release is. Okay, so in the golf swing, to me, a release, when someone says release, what they're usually talking about is the point at which the club head passes the hands. So whenever you allow that club head to just swing past the hands freely, that's the point at which you're releasing it. Now, when you release the golf club correctly or properly, it depends on where the longest point forms first. With an iron, when you're hitting an iron shot, the longest point of the golf swing has to form after the golf ball. Okay, so that would signify that you've hit down on it first. So after that point is when the club head will begin to pass the hands. And that's the proper point of release. Now, a flip release is when somebody forms that longest point too early and the club head overtakes the hands too early, okay? So if that longest point is forming early and the club head is passing the hands like this, you'll tend to have a lot of low point problems, meaning you'll tend to hit the ground first, or you'll actually miss the ground and hit up on the ball and top it. And you'll also have more difficulty controlling where the club face is pointed, and you'll lack distance. So having that proper release to where you're forming the longest point after impact and then allowing the club head to pass will give you the most control over club face and give you the most distance, because you're actually going to be hitting down on it and compressing it and getting the ball to actually kind of shoot through the air a bit faster. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to hit a few shots doing the proper release, okay, and I'm going to show you what my wrist is actually doing and kind of explain the details behind it. And then we're going to go ahead and hit some shots doing a flip release, and I'll just explain what the differences are. Now, just to quickly explain the right sequencing of a proper release. What you would typically want to see is your wrist position at address. By the time you get to the top of the backswing, the wrist position should be fairly similar. So you don't have to be in a really flexed position. You don't want to add more cupping to it. You'll see that whatever position the lead wrist is at address, you'd want it to be pretty similar at the top. Then what happens from the top is that the best ball strikers will tend to add a more flex into that lead wrist first. Then they would come down, and then what would happen is that they would let the angles out on their wrist, and then at the end, they would turn their forearms over a little bit. So again, so just so you can see it from this angle here, wherever the wrist is positioned at address, it'll typically be the same or very similar at the top. Then there'll be an added flex into that lead wrist. The arms would come down, the body would turn, then they would start to let go the angles, and then at the end, they would start to rotate the forearms and allow that club head to pass the hands only after they've formed that straight line kind of after impact. It follows that sequence and in that order. Okay, so when I hit these balls, trying to do that, we'll kind of look at the HackMotion numbers and see if I'm doing it correct here. Okay, so you can see that after I hit that shot, it says at address, my lead wrist was 15 degrees extended. Okay, and that makes sense because of how I'm gripping the club. Okay, and when I got to the top, it says I was 1 degree too extended, but it's actually quite similar to where it was at address. And then you can see that by the time I got to impact, it got to negative 17. So that means my lead wrist was like 17 degrees into flex. So for the most part, I guess I followed that sequence down. Okay, so it was pretty similar from address to the top, and then from the top I added more flex into impact. Okay. So let's hit two more. Again, yeah, I'm adding maybe a little bit more extension. okay, than what I should. But again, from the top down, I'm getting it pretty much in a good spot. So I'm still following that pattern. Okay, and I'll go one more. So that one I tried not to add as much extension, and it was pretty much the same where it was at address up to the top. And then at impact, yes, so I'm like really flexed, a lot flexed, which is okay. Out of those 3 shots, for the most part, I followed that general sequence of keeping the wrist angles pretty much the same, okay, from address to the top. And then what happens is that my lead wrist will definitely go into more flex. Now what I'll do is I'll hit 3 shots doing more of a flip release. And remember, that flip release is it's gonna look like this, okay? I'm feeling like I'm letting the angles out. I might be adding more extension in the backswing and then letting the club out early, and then the club head will pass my hands really, really early. Okay, so we'll see what the numbers look like when I do that. Wow. Okay, that's hilarious. So where I was at address, I definitely added more extension. I honestly felt like I was doing this. Okay, but it still said my wrist was like -1 degree in flex. That's crazy. So I'm someone that can really easily add in a lot of flex. Okay, so feeling that flip release is being still flex is kind of funny. Okay, so I'll kind of do it even more. But you can kind of see that the ball is launching much higher, and I'm not hitting it nearly as far. There you go. Okay. Wow, that felt insane to me. Okay, I added more extension, and I really tried to feel like I was like this. Okay, so I definitely touched the ground first when I did that. Again, this just shows you that when you actually really try to flip it, what the golfer tends to do is that they'll tend to add more cup or extension to that lead wrist, okay? And then when they come down, they'll tend to actually cast out the club or extend out the angles really early and then let the club head pass. So you'll swing really up on it. It'll be hard to get this penetrating flight, things like that. Again, the most important thing to be able to kind of release it correctly is make sure that you're adding flex into that lead wrist in the downswing. Then, when you're able to do that, you're able to kind of strike the ball with a little bit more shaft lean so that the club head can pass or form a straight line after the ball before you allow the club head to pass the hands. Now, what I want to explain next is a very simple exercise that you can do. If you had some feedback tool like HackMotion, that would be really great to have, because you can kind of see how your wrist is actually moving in live time. But the drill or exercise is just to go up to the top of the backswing, okay? And you want to see that the numbers actually get more negative, okay? The specific number is not important. What's important is that you're going up to the top, and then before you start down, you swing down, you're actually adding that flex in there. Okay, so you're just wanting to see the numbers get more negative, and you're just practicing adding that move into your sequence. So you're going up to the top, and then you're adding that flex. You can see the numbers get more negative. Up to the top, get into more negative. So once you can kind of feel that out, then the next step would be to actually go to hit the ball, but you can do it really slowly. So that way you can still focus on making sure that you're feeling that added flex before you start the downswing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go up to the top, add flex, and then hit. At the top, I'm a lot more negative than normal because I was purposely trying to add more flex. And that's okay for this exercise, because at least at impact, I'm even more flexed than where I was at the top. And when you do this faster, the numbers will read a little bit different. But like I was saying, when you do things really slowly and you really feel things out or have enough time to feel things out, you may be able to exaggerate things a lot better. So let's do that one more time. So I'm going to go up to the top, add that flex, make it more negative. Make it more negative. And then I'll go slowly. again, I was a little bit not as flexed as the last shot, but I was still more flexed than where I was at the beginning or the start of my swing. Okay, and then the most important thing is the difference between the top and impact. It became a lot more negative. So that's a very simple one that you can do, and it's even more effective if you have a feedback tool like HackMotion. So you can see the numbers in live time, okay, so that you're not kind of guessing whether you're doing it correctly or not. So now that you guys have kind of an idea of what the wrist should be doing to ensure that you're set up to release it properly, the next important piece actually has to do with the position of your trail elbow. Okay, it's not really talked about a lot, but I just wanted to highlight to you guys why this might be important in order for you to release the club properly. So now people who kind of flip release like this, or kind of throw the club head out early and get the club to pass, their trail elbow, or the inside of the trail elbow, is usually really far behind the ball. So if you think about it, if you do this, you can see that my right elbow is way back over here. If my right elbow doesn't move forward, okay, I have to, if it just stays here, I have to let the club out early. So if we want to ensure that we get the club to lean forward and to get the longest point to form more in front of the ball before the club head releases, we have to make sure that that trail elbow, the inside of that trail elbow, is a little bit more so in front of your body. Now, when I say in front, I don't mean attached to my side. Okay, you don't want to do that. Okay, if your right elbow attaches to your rib cage on the side, it's stuck behind you. So the only thing that you can do to get the club head is to throw your wrist out like this. Don't stick it to the side, because then you'll just throw it out like that. Okay, instead you want to allow your trail elbow to kind of move across the stomach and kind of in front of the stomach before you let the club pass the hands. So you can see if I let it out here, my elbow's back here. If I can release it a little bit later, kind of through impact, you see my elbow is moving a little bit more across my stomach before I let the club pass. So that's a really important point that I wanted to highlight to you guys, because as long as your elbow is back here, it doesn't really matter what your wrist does, to be honest. If your elbow's back here, you're gonna add a lot of extension or cupping into that lead wrist. It'll be physically very difficult to add in the flex unless you start to throw it over the top and you turn your wrist down like this, okay? But you don't want to do it like that. A great drill is actually to grab an alignment stick. And what you want to do is, I'm just holding it underhand with my trail arm. And when I go back, I'm actually trying to throw or kind of spear the floor with the alignment stick, but a bit more kind of ahead of where the golf ball would be. Okay, so if this is the ball in my stance, I don't want to spear the ground right at the ball. I definitely don't want to spear the ground before. What I want to do is I want to spear the ground after the ball, really far in front of it, out here. So if you were on the range and you threw this alignment stick in front, okay, it'll probably stick in the ground. If not, that's okay. I mean, you can just see I'm just throwing it kind of in front. And if I can keep the alignment stick kind of pointed, somewhat towards the target, obviously I don't want to throw it like across me over here. If I can keep it pointed kind of down the target line and get it to kind of spear in front of the ball, that's going to give you a feeling of getting that right elbow or that trail elbow to kind of move across and in front of you. You won't be able to spear the ground ahead of the ball if your elbow's back here, unless you throw it like this or something like that. So if I can spear it in front, you can see that my elbow was kind of in front of me as I threw it. Okay, that's a good way to kind of feel out the movement of that trail arm. Okay, and when you actually go to grab the club again, so when I come in, I'm feeling like I'm grabbing that alignment stick kind of underhand, and I'm throwing that butt end in front of the ball, and then before I release it. So that'll help you position your right elbow a little bit more in front of you and not keep it behind you. So that'll set you up to really help you to release it at the right time, and more so kind of ahead of that golf ball as opposed to behind and flipping your hands. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Now, if you have any questions about anything that I talked about, Or if you guys have any ideas on what you want me to talk about next or more specifically, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.